Well, what are we waiting for? Lights, camera, Retro Man!
G'day viewers, Retro Man here and welcome to the 80s Show. Now today I'll be continuing on with my series, Why You Should Watch. This is where I take a nostalgic film and give you a whole heap of reasons why you should check it out. Now today I will be giving you the lowdown on why you should watch Grandview USA. Now this is a film from 1984 directed by Randall Fleischer. Now this is a coming of age story and it involves a woman who runs a Midwestern demolition derby, and she has affairs with a recent high school graduate and a married man. Now, does that sound interesting? Well, there are some romantic entanglements in this film that are quite tantalizing and very entertaining. But one of the big reasons to see this film, guys, let's start with the director, Randall Fleischer. And at the time, back in the 80s, he was kind of a hot director. And he'd just come off the bat of Grease, which was that blockbuster with John and Olivia, and shortly after that he scored another hit with The Blue Lagoon, which was this idyllic love story starring Brooke Shields and Christopher Atkins. So Randall had the finger on the pulse when it came to young love stories. He also got involved in another film in the Greek islands called Summer Lovers, which featured Peter Gallagher and Daryl Hannah. So this film was kind of the fourth one in a row for Randall, and I must say it has all those attributes of the other films, and there's even a little bit of a Grease-inspired moment in Grandview USA, so that's another reason to check it out. But let's get into it, guys. A film like this really needs a hot cast, and this film certainly has that. It has a very interesting cast, guys, and a lot of these performers were on the brink of superstardom. Now let's start with Jamie Lee Curtis. She is the main attraction really in this film. At this point in her career, she'd been in a few slasher films, and she was a bit of a screen queen at this point, and she'd also tried her hand at comedy in Trading Places with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd. But in Grandview USA, this is where she really tries something different again, and she plays the owner of this Midwestern demolition derby, and she has an affair with a high school graduate and a married man, and her performance in this, she shows that she can be tough, she can be sexy, and she can also be vulnerable, and I think that gives her performance a real quality. Now, the other performer in this film is a young guy by the name of C. Thomas Howell, and he was kind of making a name for himself as a teen on the scene in the 80s. I mean, he was on the covers of all those teenage magazines because he had just been in The Outsiders prior to this film, and he was really making a name for himself. And in this film he plays a high school graduate who's a little bit of a dreamer. I mean, he has his life in front of him and he kind of wants to get involved in marine biology, but guys, he ends up finding himself in the bed of Jamie Lee Curtis. So it's a little bit of a mixed up tale, but there is some fun to be had here, and it's kind of, a bit of a complex study of relationships. So C. Thomas Howell and Jamie Lee Curtis spark up this interesting little love affair, but at the same time there's a third actor involved, and this guy, of course, is Patrick Swayze. Now this is Patrick Swayze a couple of years before Dirty Dancing, and he's very good in this film as well. He plays a hot-headed driver. He kind of really is the star driver at Jamie Lee Curtis's demolition derby, and Patrick has feelings for Jamie Lee as well, even though he is actually married, and his marriage is kind of on the rocks, and when he sees that Jamie has eyes for young C. Thomas Howell, things kind of get a little bit complicated. And there is another actress that is also in this one. We have Jennifer Jason Leigh. I'm sure you know her from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And she plays Swayze's wife, who's kind of, she's fallen out of love in the marriage and she's playing up behind his back. And the guy that she is sort of having an affair with is Troy Donahue. Now, Troy Donahue was a big teen star in the 50s and 60s. Troy was the star of that very famous romance film, A Summer Place. And some years have gone by, and Troy is only in a supporting fashion in this film, but he has certainly changed in his look. And in this film, he plays a very sleazy character who is having an affair with Jennifer Jason Leigh. And he has chains, gold chains, and he's just not a nice guy at all. So this was a very kind of big departure from what audiences remembered him from as this kind of suave, debonair teenager in the 50s and 60s. But man, I mean, this cast is really interesting because we have some other supporting players that kind of pepper the proceedings and add a lot of fun to it. So we even have Joan Cusack plays an interesting little role, and John Cusack. So you have this sister and brother thing going on as well. They pop up at odd times throughout the film and kind of hang out at the demo derby. They know C. Thomas Howell, and they add some interest factor to this film as well. And another guy that also pops up in this film is Michael Winslow. He's there as kind of a race announcer at the demo derby. He's on the mic, and it's just really neat seeing Jones from Police Academy in this film as well. So, oh man. So one of the big reasons to check out Grandview USA, of course, is its very interesting cast. And like I said, these guys were all on the brink of superstardom. And as a film, guys, I mean, it's not the greatest coming-of-age film, but it certainly has its moments, and the cast really make it watchable. I mean, once you get involved in this thing, you just want to see what happens. You can't take your eyes off these relationships, and you just stick with it the whole way through. And at the end, we get a neat little resolve, and we kind of get a glimpse at C. Thomas Howell's future. And as I said, it's a coming-of-age film. And this film is kind of riddled with entertaining scenes. I mean, you've got some demolition derby action, but outside of that, you get a very entertaining sequence where Patrick Swayze demolishes a house with a bulldozer. And inside that house, of course, is Jennifer Jason Leigh and Troy Donahue. He does not like what's going on in that house, and he kind of gets drunk and explodes and destroys the house. And who can forget that other crazy Swayze moment where he finds Jennifer Jason Leigh and Troy Donahue sitting there out the front of the house in that sports car, and he just goes totally nuts. I mean, he kicks in the doors of the car, he jumps up on the bonnet and stamps on the bonnet. Next minute, he jumps up on the roof of the car and he's pounding on the roof with his feet. He then proceeds to kick in the tail lights. He goes completely nuts, guys, and it's such a memorable Swayze moment. And it all culminates with Troy Donahue pulling a gun out, and Troy winds up actually shooting himself, and he ends up in the emergency room. So, guys, as I said, this film has these moments that really stand out in your mind, and that Swayze one is just a killer moment. And we get a very entertaining musical sequence with C. Thomas Howell and Jamie Lee Curtis. As I said, C. Thomas Howell is a dreamer, and he kind of gets in dream mode and imagines himself as a rock star in an MTV style video. And Randall Fleischer, being the director of Grease, really knows how to handle a music sequence. And this music video that they kind of just drop in the film is just so entertaining. I mean, it is a little bit cheesy and campy, and C. Thomas Howell is there in a big oversized white rock star jacket, and he's strutting around. Jamie Lee looks fantastic. She's kind of wearing this red dress that's made out of chains, and it's really fun stuff. The song is called Steely Man by Frank Musker, and it works so well. You have to remember this is a dream sequence, so it really is a bit spoofy of your usual MTV video, and they kind of just drop that in there, and that makes for a whole lot of fun. So Grandview USA has a great cast, a very interesting director that had his finger on the pulse when it came to youth films in the 80s, and it also has a whole plethora of entertaining scenes, from its music sequences to its demolition derby action to the general chemistry between these stars. And it's photographed really well, and man, what can I say? Check out Grandview USA. So guys, it was a lot of fun reflecting on Grandview USA, and it's not as well remembered as those John Hughes films, but what I like about this film is we get to see Swayze and C. Thomas Howell together again. Of course, they were in The Outsiders, and they made a bit of a thing getting together in the 80s because they were also in Red Dawn, if you remember. You know, that film when the Russians invade America. So Swayze and C. Thomas Howell certainly have a history together on screen, and I think that Swayze and C. Thomas Howell really work well together, and they lift this material, as does Jamie Lee Curtis, who really adds another level. So there we have it, guys. That's my take on why you should watch Grandview USA. So guys, tell me in the comments below, have you seen this film from 1984? What do you think of the cast? And if you haven't seen it, check it out. So please guys, like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps. Hit that thumbs up button if you've enjoyed the video. Until next time, this is Retro Man, living the dream, 80s style. Stay gold.
Thanks for watching. Retro Man will return faster than a boomerang and with vocals just as impressive as C. Thomas Howell. Please subscribe and good night, viewers.